to the next video in our ESSA video series titled How to Read a Study. I am Lauren Spenceley, Secondary Literacy Specialist for the Arizona Department of Education.
And I'm Eric Ambrozo, Research Assistant with Rel West at WestEd.
We are happy to share the next phase of our ESSA informative webinar series. You are watching video number 5, which builds on information from all the previous videos. In video number 3, we talked about evidence-based improvement. In video number 4, we showed you how to use the Clearinghouse's Evidence for ESSA and What Works Clearinghouse to help you research the best evidence-based programs for your school or district. In this video, we will show you how to read a study and show you some key indicators that will help you determine the ESSA evidence level of the study. This knowledge will be invaluable as you continue your journey of becoming an ESSA investigator.
As discussed in video 2 of this webinar series, ESSA has 4 tiers of evidence to rate an intervention's potential effectiveness to improve student outcomes in a school or district. Tier 1 is strong evidence, Tier 2, moderate evidence, Tier 3, promising evidence, and Tier 4 demonstrates a rationale. When determining the evidence tier rating of an intervention for your school or district, there are 5 factors to consider. The 5 factors and their applicability to each evidence tier is described in the ESSA Tiers of Evidence handout. We've provided a link to the handout on the website you use to access this webinar series.
So we are going to look at an example efficacy study of a core reading program. And as we continue through this study, just a reminder that in a lot of the ESSA language, you will see all programs referred to as interventions. This doesn't mean it's an intervention program. It could be a core program, intervention program, supplemental program, etc. But in ESSA language, they will be referred to as interventions. So our intervention in this study is a core reading program that emphasizes phonics mastery. The research was conducted by a research team of the program publisher and published internally. Please note, it is important to pay attention to who authored the study. In this study, it was conducted by the publisher. Ideally, the studies will be conducted by independent researchers. The design is a treatment and comparison group followed over 1 semester, no pretest measures. The sample includes 2,000 student participants in 10 schools in a suburban district, 15% economically disadvantaged, 3% English learners, and 10% eligible for special education services, 25% Hispanic, 15% African American, and 60% white. No report of how many students dropped out of the study. The overall results: students who received instruction in the core reading program performed better than students who did not, as measured by the State Language Arts exam. The differences were statistically significant at p less than 0.05. The reported effect size was 0.35. For subgroups, results were consistent across subgroups.
Now we will use the ESSA Tiers of Evidence handout and the 5 factors to review the example study. The 5 factors that we will consider are study design, results of the study, findings from related studies, sample size and setting, and match. The backside of this handout includes a really useful table that shows how each of the 5 factors is related to each ESSA evidence tier. We will use this table while evaluating the study.
The first factor to look at is the study design. The study design included treatment and comparison groups that were followed over 1 semester. There were no pretest measures given. Due to this, the study design appears to be correlational. Please note, for a study to be considered in the top 2 tiers, the study would need to include benchmark equivalencies. Basically, there needs to be a pretest and a post-test. So we can conclude If we look at the back of our handout, we can see that correlational studies fall under Tier 3 promising. So the highest level this study could reach is Tier 3.
Now, if we look at the overall results, we see that students who received instruction in the core reading program performed better on a statewide language arts exam than students who did not. The difference in these two groups was statistically significant, which is represented by a p-value that is less than 0.05. The effect size is 0.35, which would probably be considered a medium effect size. While effect size is not required to determine ESSA evidence tier, it can help you evaluate the results of the study. In looking at our table, you'll see that under promising evidence, the results of the study are statistically significant positive effect on relevant outcome.
Our next factor to consider are findings from related studies. This one study reflects the findings of one group of researchers. The more studies you can look at for a program, the better you will be able to evaluate how effective that program will be for your students. You want to make sure that overall, the studies are showing strong positive findings and not conflicting results. In the next video in our series, we will talk about Tool 5, a tool you can use to compare studies and the whole body of evidence for a specific program. As a reminder from video 4, you can use Evidence for ESSA, What Works Clearinghouse, ERIC, and Google Scholar to find multiple studies on a chosen program, as well as reaching out to vendors. Again, the more studies, the better. Being able to make a decision about this factor does require reviewing more than one study to make sure there are no negative findings.
To be considered strong or moderate, a study must have a sample size that includes more than 350 participants in more than one district or school. If we look at the example study, it meets these criteria. However, it does not include information about participant attrition, which could be some cause for concern. Regardless, the study clearly meets the sample size and setting requirements for the promising tier.
The next factor you would want to consider is match. To make sure the program would be a match, make sure the demographics of participants of the study align with your school or district. And again, match will be dependent on your school or district's needs and makeup. Also, be aware as you are reviewing studies that studies could have what appears to be a strong study design, but with no statistical significance. A vendor might not make that clear, and that's something that you would want to review in the study itself. Or the other thing is it could be a strong study with a very strong design and good results, but it's the wrong grade level. Maybe the study was for 8th graders and you're trying to look for a program for kindergarten through 3rd grade. So these are just things to pay attention to as you review studies.
In the next video, we will show you how to explore the body of evidence for a selected program by looking at related studies.
Thank you again for joining us in this video series. You'll see here the team that has taken part in these videos, and we do hope that you will join us for the rest as we continue to share our knowledge. Thank you.